All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Happy Monday. Thank you all for joining the November EPP coordinator meeting. I know that we are starting a little bit later than normal with this meeting because of the president's or the university celebration. So I knew that a lot of us would enjoy that free lunch. So I didn't want to make sure that we had to decide and have the meeting, conflict with that particular event. So I'm going to go ahead and call our meeting to order. It is 2:30. And as you see, we have a pretty brief agenda, but obviously it's always important for us just to meet, gather. The meeting is being recorded for our colleagues who have class or other engagements at this later time. The meeting minutes were provided in the meeting invite, as well as after the October meeting. Are there any corrections or items that we need to address from that minutes or from those minutes? And if not, may I have a motion to accept the October EPP coordinator minutes? And I'll try to find those real quick if you don't have them in front of you. I think I found them. There we go. And the big thing for me, since I'm oftentimes multitasking and doing this, is just making sure if you were in attendance that you do see your name on the attendee list. So I will certainly hold it there for a minute just to make sure that those of you that were here are properly reflected on those minutes. And again, if there are no noted corrections, if I may have a motion to accept the October 23rd EPP coordinator minutes.
I move that we accept them.
Thank you, Dr. Shives.
I second.
That is Dr. Christian's voice. I've heard that before.
Yeah.
All in favor? Aye. See hands up, thumbs up. Good deal. No middle fingers up, so that's great. All those opposed? Awesome. Look at us moving through this agenda. Fabulous. Let me go back and do the share to the agenda. I believe we are on program updates. So I did not receive any via email, but I did want to open the floor to any coordinators that may have any updates that they need to report to the EPP to have on our radar.
May I speak?
Absolutely.
Okay. Just one, as you all know, we've gone round and round for years and years about getting this, getting our elementary education officially in the College of Education. And we just submitted our revision to THEC right before Thanksgiving. And I'm hoping it's the last one and that we will have, so everybody cross your fingers, say a prayer that we have elementary education in our college in the books by spring 2024.
Right. Thank you so much, Dr. Christian. Any other updates? I think, I don't know, Dr. Bryan, if you're going to report on this, but also prior to the holiday, we submitted a second round of revisions for the, help me out.
Integrated early childhood.
Childhood is Dr. I guess he's not on here.
No.
Yes, integrated early childhood. We are not sure what's going to happen. It definitely needs some more work. So we're just hopeful that they will provide us grace and we will get another opportunity to actually improve on what we submitted. And we also, I think, are in the process. I think Dr. Origi will be submitting the final revisions, fingers crossed,
Mhm.
for the SPED job embedded program. So we're hoping that SPED is able to be job embedded like all of the other areas, so disciplines. So that's it.
Yeah, we've been working on that, so I do appreciate that as well. I've totally forgot about the spit. That's on my to-do list to get back through today. So yeah. Any other updates? All right, no harm, no files. Thank you for that. Dr. Smart, I will turn it over to you as well as Ms. Graves for updates from the Office of Accreditation and Assessment.
Thank you, Dr. Origi. Thank you, Acting Dean. I appreciate you.
Sir, we all read that email. We know who.
You know, I didn't get that email though. That's so funny.
That's too bad.
I didn't get it. You know, I'm not shying away from my duties, but I'm just saying I didn't get that email. But anywho, welcome everyone. I hope you all were able to attend and get some grub. I know I did, you know, so for me to be eating over there, that says a lot. Because I'm so picky and finicky, but it was really good. I had a good time. So not to waste your time, just real quick, a couple updates. And Dr. Origi can back me up on this just a little bit. So we did have our first, what do we call it? Our Cape Council meeting. And it was really the oddest experience. I've never kind of experienced anything like that with Cape because we went in, they asked us 2 questions and then said, oh, well, in 30 days or 90 days, whatever it was, you're going to have another council meeting. So we didn't know that because typically you have, when you meet with the council, that's when you find out what your outcome is. But apparently we're having another one on top of that. So, and that's fine. It's not a big deal. The longer they wait actually is better for us. It's really not a big deal. The one thing that we are kind of moving forward with and concerned about is just making sure that we're prepared for our May 2024 TDOE, I guess, for lack of a better way of saying it, the board decision about their recommendation. And if you all remember, some of our programs were recommended to be approved with small conditions, whereas others were considered to be on probation. And I don't have to go through the list of those programs. I mean, we essentially know what those are. But typically it's just for having small numbers, not having data to be able to represent the program better. So what we have to do is by February of 2024, that's why I wish we had more people here. By February 2024, we have to cleanse and revise many of the pieces that we created to submit to them. If you recall, we did like program descriptions, program plans, we did the program matrix, which I know many of you love that thing. The program matrix apparently needs to be cleaned up. There are some areas where it just falls short, doesn't have the literacy standards. So we're going to need you all to just do some tight revisions. So that way I'm prepared to represent us. You know, I would love to be empowered as much as I've been tried to empower others. I need you all to empower me this time so we can be prepared to go before TDOE and show that we are at least making the recommendations that they provided to us. We're actually taking those into account and doing some work with. So, Dr. Origi, if you wouldn't mind, can you give me share ability, please? I just want to show you something really quick. It's not going to take a lot of time. One of the things that we're going to do this time around is instead of sending everybody the folder and saying, hey, everybody work in this folder, all programs will already have a separate folder. That way you can kind of come and go as you please. You don't have to worry about going into other folks' information. You can go in there, get it wrapped up, get it cleaned up. For example, let me pick on Is Brian here? Yeah, Brian is in here. Dr. Brian, you in here, sir? Yep. I'm gonna pick on
I
music.
am.
All right, I'm gonna pick on music. So music has its own folder. All the things that were worked on are in here, disaggregated by the area. You have your own program matrix. I haven't put yours in there. I'm still working on it. But you have your own program matrix. Your program descriptions are in here. So literally all we would need you to do is go in, read them, tighten them up. Make sure the language is good. Make sure they actually match. Let me go to instructional leadership. That's probably a better one. So notice program matrix is just of that program. You don't have to worry about all those other programs that are in there. So essentially, if you list all of your licensure courses, you have to show that they're aligned to the current standards. Like they did here, it's pretty self-explanatory, but where we need a crisper look is to ensure that the standards are actually accurate. One of the things we caught in here is that the CAPE standards weren't actually the CAPE standards, and then there were the wrong standards for the national standards. For example, some will refer to ISLIC. ISLIC standards are actually no longer the national standards for educational leadership programs. So you would have to make sure that's updated to represent the current standards. So literally, we just need everybody to go in and make sure that your literacy standards, like we got dinged on not including our literacy standards for all programs. So we have to make sure those are legit. But one of the more important things is the performance assessment. So whatever you say is the performance assessment of that course, and what I mean by that is we typically refer to that as, it was formerly referred to as key assessment. So wherever that key assessment is, that's what we're asking. The performance assessment that shows the knowledge, skills, and dispositions, or shows the performance of those standards that are aligned to that particular course. So it's that one assessment, or it could be cumulative. It's just you have to define that. So if it's just one performance assessment for that course, you should ultimately have some data for that course at the end of that course. So it's literally just making sure it's tightened up. Everything's lined up. The actual performance assessment that you list is the actual assessment, right? Also, like literally, you should be able to look at your matrix and say, well, this is how I measure disposition, for example, right? Because you can go directly to the standards and see what standards those are that measure disposition. So literally everything that you need is in one place. All of the programs are broken down by each area. Again, elementary education, this is another great example. The syllabi masters are here, programs of study, program matrix, like everything that you need that we have produced up to this point are in those folders. So I need those just looking just cleaned up, sharp. So that way, when we go before them May 2024, well, why should we give you this? Well, this is what we've done up to this point. We know we got dinged on this for inconsistencies. We've cleaned it up. So I wanted to kind of just give you a bird's eye view of it, just introduce it before we start sending out emails to say, hey, here's some things that we got going on, blah, blah, blah. I've learned being a part of this college that I don't just send out an email with a bunch of instructions in it, because it will not happen. We have to just introduce it in increments just to let you know this is what we're working on. And hopefully we can get full cooperation like we did with the recruitment and retention plan. Just so you all know, we got, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Graves, 85% return for the recruitment and retention plan?
Not return.
What was it?
We had that much participation as far as the meetings go. We had that return as far as the meetings go, but the return as far as the retention plans go, we are about 60%.
60%. Okay. So, and I'm going to take that as a win. But for those folks that did not produce anything, we just put it in as null, which means we won't have any data for that. I'm not going to keep chasing after people to do their work. All right. We're all in this. We all have a responsibility. So I'm not going to keep chasing after folks. I'm going to keep reminding you that this is what we need, especially if you're a licensure program. And again, I know we're all busy. a lot of this stuff we produced in our office and just asked you to review. All I'm asking you to do now is just review it, tighten it up where you think it needs tightened up, but definitely go through those matrices and make sure your program assessments match what's in the syllabus. Make sure the standards align to those, and we can progress forward. I'll end up sending out a link where you can find this file. Go in, just make sure your pieces are tightened up. You don't have to do that for anybody else, just for your respective program. And I believe that's all we have. Any questions, comments, concerns, bad jokes? Good jokes while I'm sitting here sipping on eggnog. There's no alcohol in
I was
it.
like, there's no alcohol. We know there's no
I
dairy.
had to catch a Rigi before she went further. Dr. Patrick, go ahead.
Yeah, just a quick, I guess, request. One thing I found really helpful was after trying to do a bunch of this stuff, just having a face-to-face Zoom meeting with you and like getting your critiques, because I admittedly have been out of I'm not directly in the game like a College of Education professor is, right? I just do
Right.
this partly. So could we, after we get some of this done, request this meeting with you, just to get critiques and help me tighten it up and so on.
Oh, Andrew, come on, man. You know the answer to that question already.
know.
You already know. Anytime, any place, just let me know, and we can run through it. And I think we worked on yours a little bit together. So literally, it's just, I think for your program, it was more just revisiting the matrix,
Yeah.
if I'm not mistaken. So we just have to revisit that, tighten it up. And what people don't understand, if we do it all now and we do it right now, literally all we have to do is just keep updating it a little bit. We don't have to keep doing this deep dive. Same with the program sequence, same with the program descriptions. If they're tight and they're clean, we can get those going, QR code them up, have them hanging in the QR codes hanging in the hallway in the college. You know what I mean? So that's way just easy access, because there are students coming into our office and they'll be like, hey, I'm looking for information on this program. And I'm like, there's nothing I can do for them because I don't actually have that information handy. So that's really the goal. Let's get these tightened up so we can get them cleaned up, not only for us, for our students, but also for TDOE. Thank you.
I appreciate that. And I'm going to go ahead and tap my camera for the people that are watching this recording, because you heard him say that you can make those appointments, and he and Ms. Graves and our dearly beloved Raul, looking handsome today, are more than happy to help out and make sure that we get this done, because it really is, when we said this before with regards to understanding CAPE and TDOE. TDOE is always, it's kind of like mama knowing exactly where all the breadcrumbs are when you say you cleaned up. You're like, I cleaned up, but she lifts up the blanket and it's like, no, what's all that right there? So we really want to make sure for those that are here and also watching this recording that you do provide us with your time, energy, and talent to make sure that we can discuss your programs with validity, with reliability, with energy, because we certainly don't want to have that conversation with COE leadership in terms of like, what are the next steps in terms of to keep or things like that. So yeah, I'm not saying how to spend your holiday time, but hopefully you can just get it done before holiday time, and then you don't have to, you won't bother. We won't be bothering you, and you won't be bothering us.
Well, and then the other piece is real quick, TDOE is really aligning well with this CAPE piece, more than we knew before. So they're really, I think they're trying to replace, just if I had to guess, they're trying to replace their program review with this whole CAPE process. But it works out. If we're doing the things that we need to do, if we're focused on continuous improvement, it works out. And just the other piece, if you do get a chance to stop by my office, you will know who our new employee is. And he's kind of on a case-by-case basis. His name is Raul. So some of you that have been to my office know who Raul is. And it's just a skeleton, because that's literally how hard we be in here.
He hangs out on my desk.
He is a character, people. He is a character. But thank you again.
All right, thank you so much. And so let's just go ahead and conclude, because again, I'm always a good steward of time, and I know that, again, like this is a later meeting than before. In terms of the Office of Teacher Education, as many of you know, we have been inundated with fall admissions interviews. And so thank you always for taking the time to work with our candidates and support them. One of the things that we have been doing differently, and I do want to bring that up and just show it to you somewhat quickly. I'm not sure if it's been used before or if I'm even doing this right, but I do feel like sometimes messy data is still possibly useful data. Dr. Smart and his team will let me know if that's good or not, but we do
Clean it up together.
we do a lot of work with regards to the interviews and asking the questions. One of the things I think that we're going to have a conversation about going forward are those questions still the right questions? There are sometimes and those of you, I see some of you shaking your head, you kind of know when you're, especially for those that are being admitted to the program, it feels and looks a little bit different based off of program. Sometimes you're just kind of running around like, is this the best question to ask somebody in 2023 about being a competent professional or things like that? There's some nuances about society, curriculum, technology that are not represented on those questions. And I think we kind of select the ones that we feel would still be all encompassing. But I'm starting to feel like just in my time looking at them, that sometimes it really feels like we're not necessarily getting the right information from our candidates when we're doing the admissions process. So I will tell you that one of the things, obviously, after we do Dr. Smart's task work, I'm not going to say homework, task work, that we probably need to take a look at that. But in addition to that, one of the other things is that we really haven't, to my knowledge, I shouldn't say we haven't, to my knowledge, we really haven't looked at progression from admissions to teacher ed to admissions to residency 2. So I would just, again, I don't know if it's good data or just me being nosy. I went in to actually see, and I'm just going to go ahead and pull down Holland since I have her right here. That in the gray, here are her admission scores. So she had a 2.4 and a 2. And so obviously now getting ready to enter into residency 2, we see improvement in her scores from a 2.4 and a 2 to a 2.8. So again, we don't have the same reviewers. I know like there's I know the fancy statistical inter-rater reliability and some things that kind of go into that, but I'm not even sure before, just on basic curiosity data, if we were having conversations about candidate growth and what that also looks like. So you will also notice that on the reviewer form, there were some grounding questions that I'll be honest with you, I threw in there because I wanted to know in between the admissions interview and the exit interview survey for our candidates, for those that are admitted, that are seeking admissions for student teaching and residency 2, I specifically added 2 grounding questions just to see, one, their own professional disposition. How are you? Tell us how you feel like you have invested in yourself since being admitted into the program. And so for a lot of the candidates, they had to sit there and think about this in terms of how are they availing themselves to the services and things that we provide. Some candidates have mentioned the PD Fridays, which made me feel good because I didn't have to prompt them. But they're now starting to go to conferences. I feel like music, there's an organization that I feel like it's music. But I think there's alignment between their student music specialized organization and maybe some of the things that they're doing, but they're starting to make those professional connections with going to career fairs or building up those professional career readiness dispositions. And then also the second question was, how has their coursework prepared them and how have they evolved based off the coursework? So again, a lot of qualitative information just to kind of help them to let me know as director of the teacher ed office, how are we doing in terms of those soft services that are not necessarily required in the course with field study, but when we're doing some of these remediation, type things with the Gracie lab and things, we kind of still need to check in and make sure that they know, like, if you struggled on Praxis 2, did you go to the Gracie lab? Are you availing yourself to those resources so that we can oftentimes kind of do some tightening up there? So again, Ms. Graves, Dr. Smart, you have to tell me if that's viable data or not, or if it's just me making my life harder. But I was curious to know, considering that I did not see in some of the other databases where we were even looking at a candidate that received a 1.8, then what does that mean if they received a 1.8 on their admissions into student teaching? Is that something that we need to talk about and remediate and get with the advisor with before they go out into the school? Just a lot of different nuances. What were their scores before? And so I am tracking those for, this is the 2022 group. So these were the students that were juniors when I started last year in my position. And then we have we have them tracked for the group that went up for admissions this semester. And that also includes the Grow Your Own candidates who are already working, and their numbers are interesting. So again, I don't have the fancy statistics for that, but I do think in terms of that transition from being a paraprofessional to a teacher of record, some of their ratings were surprisingly low. So I'm curious to know, in terms of, are we making assumptions that because they're already at the school that they're already ready to teach, or do we still need to make sure that we are deconstructing maybe some bad practices that they may have seen or observed or even modeling in their school site with those that are research grounded and statistically sound, so that it doesn't carry over into EdTPA. Speaking of which, she's not on the call, but the EdTPA, that would have been another coordinator report. So I'm going to go back on behalf of Dr. Kong. The EdTPA reports did come in, and we had, I think, about 5 or 6 that had, now obviously this is most of our Grow Your Own group. We had about 5, I think, that passed, and then we had one that needs to resubmit because of a video error, and then several, I think 5 or 6 that did not pass, so about 50-50. But Dr. Kong will be working with those students on their remediation plan, and that will be reported. Those letters will be going out this week to those advisors as well as those candidates, although many of them have already contacted me because they already know. Moving on, let's see. So in terms of what we experienced, also with admissions to teacher ed looked a little bit different because we're doing the comprehensive review. So one of the things that's going to be important about that, particularly for our secondary coordinators, is if we are asking and giving point values for autobiographies, philosophy of education, it's going to be imperative that we look at when they are actually taking the 2010 course. If they're applying and they haven't done those assignments, it kind of, or they're either in that class or they haven't taken the class, they don't get points for those. I know that members of that committee were on there, but I wanted just to make sure that that's one of the things that have been triggering a conditional admissions recommendation, is because on the qualitative side, they did not have those artifacts for the reviewers to evaluate. The other thing, go ahead, Dr. Newsom.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to slow your flow.
No, I know.
I just had a quick question. I was looking at this, at the names and everything in the admissions to like teacher ed, student teaching. Where do the job embedded students fall if they were on this list? Does that
So
make sense?
only one. So we would not. So when we do the, well, let me say this. As it currently stands, I don't believe we had any job embedded that applied for admissions this cycle.
Okay.
The only graduate student was Michaela Holton, but if they were job embedded, I would have put like a GE
Okay.
or Grow Your Own type of a thing. But I'm going to presume that there might be job embedded applications for the spring cycle, because it's typically off of hire date. And so since they can't enroll in class would not be able to enroll in an EPP like mid-semester. They're probably waiting for the March cycle.
Okay,
I foresee that list being a little bit larger. Fall cycles typically are graduate students that are going for student teaching, and then the residency one group going into residency two.
okay, so they would be in that first category with the, like you said, the JE, if they were.
Mhm.
Okay,
Yes.
cool beans. Thank you.
No problem. That's a great question, but I did try to expand. You'll love me, Dr. Smart. I did try to expand, not just giving you a list of names or numbers, but just actually showing programs. Shout out to you, Dr. Bryant. You've been hustling up the music candidates. I see it. I see there's no competition here, but I see what you're doing there. Obviously excited to see a greater concentration of Black males. And so I don't know if Dr. Stewart, I don't see Dr. Stewart on here, but I did want to make sure, I haven't received any updates on the Black Male Initiative. I still hope that that's something that they're doing or that somebody is supporting that, because I want to make sure that we are supporting these candidates, knowing that that there is an obvious just professional shortage of Black males in education. So I definitely want to make sure that we see them succeed, but they clearly have a cheerleader in Dr. Bryant. Also, I was pleased to see, and again, this is not really odd because of the time of the year, but just the fact that if you look at that, you see a concentration of secondary candidates, including history and math. So I believe I saw Dr. Epps on here. Ooh, I see you, girl. So thank you for having conversations with those candidates. I'm hoping that the fact that praxis is eliminated and kind of sort of like the pathway to having some strong conversations about the tenure of EdTPA in the state it feels like it's coming to an end. I'm hoping that it's coming to an end, but it is very encouraging to see history and math represented. We obviously have biology and history in the pipeline now, as well as instrumental music. Our first cohort of Metro teacher residencies are coming through the pipeline for admission to student teaching. So I wanted to make sure that we did recognize that, as well as a post-bac candidate, which I believe is Kaylin Gunter. And then for residency 2, all of our candidates have obviously applied for admission. The interesting thing is that we currently may have 4 that will be denied admissions to residency 2 for a wonderful reason, because they will be potentially accepting the clinical practice, clinical placement permit, in which they are able to and eligible to be a teacher of record instead of student teaching. So we will be having a virtual orientation in December, I think on December the 13th, to meet with those candidates. It will also be extended to their administrator, their school district, so that they know that they will be, some of them will potentially be starting work as early as Monday, depending on their final schedule. So great thing to know, but that also means as an EPP, when you go back and make those connections with what Dr. Smart is asking of us, we really need to make sure that our matrix, our program alignments, our standards and everything are up to par, because our candidates are going out into the schools at least 4 months earlier than what they were initially anticipating. Gwinnett County Schools in Georgia, outside of Atlanta, just contacted me to say that I think they're going to be reaching out, Dr. Bryan, to Ramik, and I think Maya Cole, who was offered a job in Thurgood Marshall Middle School today, but is also from Gwinnett County, Georgia. They're wanting to hire them, and they will also have a starting teacher salary now. So it's going to be a busy time, but it also means that our candidates have to show that career readiness, that professional disposition. They have to be ready to represent us as Teaching Tigers immediately after they finish residency 1 or when they're eligible, so that they can go out and seek those employment. The other good thing before I leave and wrap up my report is that many of our candidates, because we have used the handbooks and the pacing guide, many of our candidates that are leaving residency 1 and entering residency 2 are on track to graduate. And what I mean by that is, if those of you that know me, you knew my blood, sweat, and panic last year with regards to many of our seniors at that time having not even attempted one of their Praxis 2 exams. Many of our candidates have either completed all of their Praxis exams, and that says a lot for elementary ed considering they have 5. They've completed all or they don't have any, and all they're doing is focusing on job and or EdTPA for January, which means that they really can receive the support and the resources that we have, knowing that we've been providing EdTPA support all semester in workshops, but that they've utilized this time to really make sure that they are not focusing on Praxis 2 and that they are ready to help increase our completer rate by being fully certified when they cross that finish line. That also means, hint, hint, that if you have junior advisees, please remind them that I will be bothering them all next semester because I will be looking for at least a first attempt, if they need to take it, a first attempt on Praxis 2 across the board, just to make sure that they're familiar with the test, that we can, again, give strong remediation and study guides and things like that, but it doesn't help them to go into residency 1 and have those tests lingering out there. So that note is also to remind you all as advisors that the deadline for spring applications is March 30th. They don't have to wait until March 30th. Just a hint. Final 4 starts that next weekend. I'm just saying. My NCAA hat just says, be nice to your teacher and director. They don't have to wait until March 30th. That's all I'm going to say about that. I'll tell Santa that, but they don't have to wait until March 30th. There's March the 29th, the 28th. There's a March 3rd, I heard. There's even a February. They can turn in on February the 28th. They don't have to wait till March 30th. If you're watching this, don't tell them, don't wait till March 30th. Okay, assessment phase out, secondary coordinators, school counseling, psychologists, and special ed. Please make a note. I'll hold it there for any screenshots that you may need to make. It's in the agenda, it's on the agenda. But please note that as of December 31st, these tests will be expiring and a new Praxis test will be rolling on in. So we'll be updating our database to let you know those things, particularly if we have any post-bac or job embedded candidates that have to take a Praxis test. Yes, Dr. Newsom.
Sorry, it's Megan. Do you know if there are any funds or support for faculty that might want to take any of these tests, whether it's biology, chemistry, new tests, old tests, whatever?
Once upon a time there was, so I'm not going to say no. I will certainly find that out because I do know that at one point they were actually encouraging faculty to take the Praxis test. They're like, and you should be happy because you can go in there and like not even care. I think some faculty laughed when they would go in and take it and saw some of their students in there because they were like, oh gosh, 5's hard. But I will check on that to see if funds can be made available to do just that. I think it helps with program alignment and making sure that the content that's on the test is reflected in the coursework.
We can
Thank
we
you,
can
ma'am.
request a waiver for faculty to take the test. So that might be an option, just to throw that out there.
Waiver, that's why he's the acting dean. Waiver for
Does that mean that I don't get credit though?
You get credit.
Okay.
for bringing forth the question, and the acting dean gets credit for giving me an answer that I didn't have one for. That's
You better
why
stop. You better stop right now. Seriously, cut it out.
Dr. Patrick.
Hi, yeah, just a couple things going back on the conversation that I endorse reviewing the interview questions that we do, and I think the time has been right for that for a while now. You know, and that's maybe just to like, you know, it can be a grander rethinking of how we do these interviews, or it could just simply be deciding on some more updated questions. One of the problems, I think a number of us have realized is like there are grammatical errors throughout that document. And so this is something that we, before somebody else calls us out on it, we need to call ourselves out on it and fix it. So yeah, so that's, I mean, maybe be a priority for next semester, or, depending on whatever timing we have. And then also the teacher education undergraduate admission application rating form that we're using now. I know we're just rolling it out now, and I was part of developing this form. There are a couple of things that have sort of confused me on this form, or things that I think could maybe be streamlined or something. So of course we have to use it for this cycle, so it's entirely because everybody's using it. But and I'm not talking about major tweaks at all here. I'm just looking at it and seeing a couple things that maybe we could tweak and fix and word differently, and just in a minor way. So that's maybe something else we could revisit before the March 30th spring semester deadline.
Absolutely. And that's one of the reasons why, even we can call it a pilot phase or how we're doing it. But I know we kind of jumped out there and we didn't necessarily do like the as Dr. Smart would say, the onboarding, but oftentimes you kind of see things when you're implementing, you're like, that's the thing. So on our office and our end, on our end, we wanted to make sure that a lot of the information that we can provide you up front, like test scores and transcripts and things like that, were already reflected on there. But I don't think, even for me, that it was clear in terms of like, how am I supposed to rate the disposition forms because there's not a total score on there, it's someone else's rating. So I don't want to just automatically give them a 3, or if how do we do that? And then some of the total numbers I was going to ask for clarification on, because I wasn't sure how those were supposed to add up. But we have a good gauge in terms of how we're seeing things. And again, having those conversations, because this is the right time to make those adjustments, and again, properly document it, which is why the council is valuable to us, so that we can actually say collectively, we've made this change, but now we need to tweak this here for that continuous improvement. And of course, yes, correct the grammar and maybe not make the rating so wordy or the questions so wordy. Yeah, it feels like a speech at times, but nevertheless, I appreciate that. And also, if you ever need anyone to I'm going to just offer up his services. If you ever need anyone to review your website and catch those things that you just honestly can't catch anymore, you find Dr. Patrick and he will get you, and you can fix it, or at least I fixed it immediately. But that's really important, because as Dr. Smart said, a lot of times candidates will go straight to our office to find this group and this body of advisors and coordinators. And so it really helps when the applications and the directions are very clear and intuitive in terms of language. So thank you again, Dr. Patrick, for being a good eagle eye and saying, if it's the disposition form, don't call it a recommendation form over here, because we think they're going to get it. They didn't get it. So yeah. And then education scholarships, that's going to be like, two more things. Education scholarships, obviously this is a season for everyone to go broke, because they're going to they did Black Friday, Small Business Saturday, Cyber Monday. You guys are still buying stuff. You're probably doing it right now. Nevertheless, scholarships, this is the season. So I wanted to make sure that you were aware of our scholarship page on the TESS website. Please direct your students to that. Many of them require them to be fully admitted, as well as have early spring deadlines. So just want to have that on their radar so that they can start planning and getting those forms before those deadlines expire. And then finally, I do recall Dr. Christian being on the call. Yay. But we did go to the Branch Alliance meeting in Denver. Many of you remember you received an invitation to participate. We haven't scheduled our Critical Friends visit. We're still waiting on Metro for that. But here is the thing that I think kind of brings all of this together when we're talking about partnerships and program effectiveness, whether you're initial or advanced programs. One of the things that I used as a screenshot on here was talking about this educational ecosystem approach. And I have the link for the organization as a whole, but really looking at the top, yes, we know that we're the EPP, the educator preparation provider, and that our primary service client would be our future teachers or our candidates that are going out in their respective certification areas. One of the things that I think we need to really think about, because we had on our team Amber Tyus from Metro Nashville, is how we talk about building partnerships. And is that partnership, how deep are those partnerships for us as an EPP to have relevancy and impact in our community? And so our community, sometimes we may think of it as the TSU community or the Metro Nashville community, the Metro Nashville Public School community. But are we reaching out to those various microcosms of the community, community agencies, industry and business partners, healthcare systems to really strengthen our services? So I want to give, for example, kudos and snaps to the Department of Psychological Sciences, that they have that in their community, even though they're working and they're providing us with these dynamic school counselors, that they are also working within their communities with our athletic department and making sure that they're supporting certain sports teams in their services where the university or where their needs may be falling short or have limitations. But then it also means that means that there's great opportunities for them to build and expand and have partnerships within how we service schools, parents, families. So as we think about the impact of our programs, and even with our professional development Fridays, I do want to encourage you to think about how we can bring those other stakeholders in, whether they be government agencies or individuals within your specialized area. Because when we talk about social and emotional learning, that's not something that I had in my teacher ed program, but it may be something that Dr. Shives and his team may be perfectly equipped to have to discuss with our teacher education candidates in a conference or as a webinar or in a manner that makes it intentional, because we are family, and then showing how we can take those services and go out into the community to really truly make TSU not the EPP on the hill, but an EPP that is intentional with action in the national community. I don't see whose hand was raised. I see something in the chat. Oh, yeah, you're welcome. Actually, athletics wanted me to also extend that thank you, because they were like, well, you know what Thurman and Rocha are doing. I was like, I saw them at the volleyball game, but I thought they were like me, just trying to get some ice cream. I didn't realize that they were working. Good to know, colleagues. So we'll have some more conversations about that. I've also, I know that that's going to help us with our focus groups, because when we were talking, Metro Nashville had a totally different community network and educational ecosystem that wasn't even on our radar. And I was like, I'm not sure why those organizations are not on our radar. So it makes it really a beautiful harmony when we're talking about recruitment and retention, not just for our EPP, but even as a university, of how we truly leverage all the different stakeholders in making sure that we do have strong families, strong communities, and strong schools. All right. With that, I will allow you to see the January calendar. There's obviously not one for December, because if we're smart, we're going to work on Dr. Smart's task work before the semester's over, so that we don't have to take that home with us for the holidays. From my understanding, Faculty Institute is on the 8th. We will have our Residency 2 orientation on January the 16th. Obviously, if you have candidates in those programs, you will also receive an invitation just so that you can support them on that journey. And you already see we have EdTPA workshops to support our Grow Your Own candidates in the spring, as well as our pre-residency 2 orientation, just to keep our juniors supported and grounded. But most specifically, our January EPP meeting will be on the 22nd at 1:15 p.m. via Zoom, right back where you are in your offices. So My last homework assignment for you, think of some interview questions, maybe like AI, go on Google Bard, ask them, give me some good teacher ed questions, but also colleagues, be good to yourself. I don't know if you did Thanksgiving break in a good, restful manner, but be selfish. Eat all the food that you want. No one's going to know. No one's going to care. And then you can go ahead and make all those good resolutions, you know, and then look forward to seeing which one falls off your hit list before, before February 1. But have fun, be good to yourselves. And I do wish you all a happy holiday. And thank you for all the work and allowing Dr. Smart to bother you all fall semester. I didn't do it this time.
Thank you, Dr. Regan.
You're welcome. Go watch some football or basketball. Or watch nothing at all. Okay, 10 minutes. Go away, people. I love you. Behave. See you next year. Ooh, I like saying that. All right, graduation.